to him, his take on corruption.
Now, people say corruption is endemic. It's become the way we live. People want to know your approach to tackling corruption and your pledge. Are you going to uproot it? Are you going to minimize it? How are you going to deal with corruption?
I think that to some extent, with respect, the way those questions are put in themselves shows the difficulty in dealing with uprooting it. I don't think that any society in the world has uprooted corruption. What most places have tried to do is to minimize it and reduce its impact on the way that the national economies work. And I think that has to be. But the goal will continue the path that was began, which is to create the legal framework that will impact on corruption. When I was Attorney General, we passed the Public Procurement Act, the Whistleblowers Act. Several pieces of legislation came into place, if fully enforced, would be very, very significant in the fight against corruption. If it is required that any time there's a public works of a certain size, then it should be run through a tendering process. If you're going to do it through sole sourcing, you've already lost one part of the handle on the fight against corruption. So the law is in place. But whether are you going to implement it or not? Yes. You'll make the clear decision. You're going to implement it. You're going to make the tendering for public works, public businesses, the norm, not the exception.
That was Akufo-Addo 8 years ago, Helen. Sole sourcing will be a thing of the past. He says, well, if you engage in sole sourcing, which means that you have already lost a handle on the fight against corruption. 8 years on, what is the scorecard?
The scorecard is that we are now more than ever utilizing sole sourcing, single sourcing for a lot of contracts, big contracts. We're not seeing that competitiveness, no auctioning happening. So I don't know how the president feels when he listens to himself from 8 years ago, juxtaposing that against what we see these days. I don't understand him at all. I don't get the president whatsoever.
Well, you see, for me, I think that somebody needs to pinch the president to remind him of some of the things he said in the past. Because if you look at the theory of what the man says and what the man does, they are like night and day. Here he was some 8 years ago inside an Accra-based radio station studio, City FM, saying that if you engage in what do you call it, sole sourcing, you have already lost one handle on the thing. How do you get in there? And almost everything, we're talking 5G, sole sourcing. Too many of the contracts have been sole sourced.
National Cathedral Architecture. We didn't see any competitiveness. SML, we didn't see any competitiveness. So, enter the cocoa sector.
So what is he talking about? Now look at this. The Northern Development Authority boss, you remember the CEO and the two deputies?
Yes.
The corruption issue?
Yes.
Right. We can also talk about contracts for sale. JPPA.
Yes.
Right? Then we can talk about the Jabin MC, who said he had given people money to vote for him. People didn't vote, so he had to be held, right?
Yes. I recall when he was nabbed, he said it was, thank you for wasting time on me.
Right.
Money. Yes.
Then you remember Sir John and his estate have willed it forever.
Yes.
You remember that? Then you remember Cecilia Abenadapa, of course you do.
Oh, yes.
Right? Then there's a wealthy businessman and the Apia Kubi. As Antia Chibnobo said, they came to bribe them in parliament, blah, 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 blah.
Till date, he says he will not disclose that businessman.
Charles Edubuahin, former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. You remember?
I do recall.
That secret recording and all of that. You remember Charles Bisu?
Indeed. Good.
Do you remember the Tama Oil Refinery Energy Processing Limited corruption risk assessment, the sale of what do you call it, contaminated fuel? Do you remember Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority? They had an issue. They also suspended port auction sales for restructure of legal companies, blah blah blah, compliance, plenty issues. La Bianca.
Oh yes.
You remember La Bianca?
I remember La Bianca.
Right. Do you remember the government payroll where they said there were ghost names right?
In
After
fact,
we are
even
done,
go schools.
good. Then you can come to Kwadaso MP and the Deputy Minister of Education, Professor Kingsley Nyako, going into the polling area to go and give the people breakfast.
Yes, at 10 a.m. No, is that lunch? Lunch at 10 a.m.
Right.
Yes.
Do you remember SML deal?
Oh, yes.
Ghana Water Company.
Indeed.
State lands, school lands, and other vested lands, I mean, so there's a tall list, right? Adam Senanu is joining us on the phone line now. He's the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Adam, thank you very much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Now, let me begin this conversation with you. The president has touted his charm in the fight against corruption. The fact that the fight against corruption has deepened under his watch. What do you say? Is the president speaking what everybody wants him to say, or is he speaking the truth as is the case?
Well, I don't think it's neither speaking what everybody wants him to say, nor the truth. I think that we want to be real at the level of citizens. We clearly see increasing numbers of scandals and procurement challenges that have not augured well. I don't think that the president at the moment is reflecting the reality on the ground. And I would rather he had not chosen the occasion to comment on corruption. Unfortunately, sometimes it may be the script writers and those who are informing it. But no, his perspective does not reflect what is going on at the moment.
The president insists that he is not a clearing agent. But yesterday, he eulogized the Attorney General, gave him plaudits. Here's the Attorney General who a judge in an ongoing case had advised strongly to recuse himself because she saw professional misconduct, etc., in the way he had gone about his work. The president, by this pronouncement publicly, tends to whitewash the Attorney General to look clean all over again, even before proper investigation is instituted into the matter. Has the president earned the clearing agent tag really by doing that?
I think that he probably is not noting that he tends to do this over and over again. And truly, yes, as he was speaking, he was falling into the same trap of clearing because he should just have been silent. It was a beautiful occasion. The law office was being inaugurated. Others were commending the Attorney General. I mean, it was his limelight. Allow him. But to wade into commentary about him coming from your stable and, it clearly juxtaposes the content against what the High Court had said in terms of his professional conduct, etc., which I think the president could have just ignored. He could just have been silent on that part. So once again, the president put himself in a position where people will, and I think there's a legitimate concern there, because of conflicts of interest. Because in Article 284, a public officer is not supposed to put himself or herself in a position of potential conflict of interest that affects the performance of their duties. What it means is that if you have a personal interest, that personal interest should not affect your judgment, your utterances, etc. It's unfortunate that has not yet been codified, for example, in the COPO or other laws. But clearly the Constitution frowns about the situation where your personal relationships and interests begin to have an influence on public performance. And perhaps when he talks about due process, his attention should be drawn to this fact. So, no, I don't think that the president helped the situation in any way by those comments.
Now, if we are to fight corruption as much as you and your colleagues and many of us yearn that corruption will become a thing of the past, or if you will, minimized to the barest minimum, what is the way to go? We have the Office of the Special Prosecutor, which was a specific vehicle that this government had touted in opposition and also gotten into government and implemented the office. We have seen Martin Amidu, we have seen Kissie Jabin, but really the people say they are not satisfied with just having the office in existence and not having any tangibles to show in terms of the crack of the whip on fighting corruption. What do you say?
I think that the government of the day and the presidency should not appear to be signaling institutions on who are untouchables. Don't make a comment on Sifladapa in your response. Don't make a comment on anybody for that matter, including Chairman Wontumi and the forest issues. Let's be clearly robust in isolating members of our government who are involved in anything suggested to be graft. Allow them to be investigated. Allow the rule of law to take place. And let's go beyond saying that it's all about due process. You don't fight just with the due process. You fight with your posture shown by leadership, making sure that public's concerns and sensitivities on perception are taken on board and addressed frontally. We need strong leadership, strong institutions with strong delivery on the things that we have planned to do in the anti-corruption space.
I see. Now, before I let you go, sir, the citizens, what role can they play? Because it looks like everybody is now complaining. They are looking at the institutions of state to be able to lead the charge, bring the solutions we are looking for. But I believe the citizens have a role to play. What can they do?
Absolutely. I mean, what we see at the national level tends to be a reflection on what many citizens are doing. I think that especially as a subculture, we seem to have taken graft to be an acceptable way of doing things. We need to look at ourselves, and perhaps this is a time for societal reflection. Our moral conscience and our moral compass seems to be lost. The religious leaders and other opinion leaders, let's help ourselves rededicate ourselves to core values: honesty, hard work, integrity, respect for other people. We seem not to have core values we are standing by. And they're calling me on the other line. And so these are things we need to focus on.
Adam, I thank you very much indeed for your time. I know you're a busy man this morning. Everybody wants a piece of you, but thank you for making time to speak to us. Adam Senanu is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Now, here's COP retired Nathan Kofi Boachi. He was on one of our flagship programs, Hot Issues, with veteran and senior in the business and in the industry, Kwesi Pratt. And this is what he had to say 5 years ago about corruption.
Important. CDD, Afrobarometer report, all of that. They are always citing the police as being amongst the most corrupt. How come? Is it true?
The point is that what is corruption? We have to posit the corruption in the right context. Is it the giving of money?
Or the taking of money?
Or taking of money. That is an infinitesimal aspect of corruption. What about nepotism? What about favoritism? What about patronage? What about clanism? For instance, now, I've seen your people. A policeman arrests TV3 car. They call me. Oh, Commander, we've been arrested though. Why? Oh, we don't have insurance, we don't have road rating. I said, let me talk to the boy. Oh, Cobra. Oh, they are my people, leave them. Is that not corruption? People going from maybe CDD, you know somebody, you want your son to be recruited. You go and see somebody because you are a professor. They say, oh, bro, bring him. He's recruited. Without going through the merits, without going through sun in the sun, he's recruited. And so many other things. So what kind of methodology? What was their point of reference? And that's my problem. And between me and you, if now we go and interview people at the harbor alone, they will have who is more corrupt there.
Exactly.
When we go and interview teachers or people who want to be admitted, JSS, you know who is more corrupt. But you know, police, among all the works, police, we are the interface between the law and the public. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And they see us more. Policemen are always on the road. And even the police corruption they're talking about is only on the roads. The MTU. which we have accepted that is bad. Then who gives them the money? Quite apart from that, traditionally, culturally, our system endorses corruption. Look at all our proverbs. On searching your da honor tafre, and you boy kutrim. On searching your da, on searching your da this on sayem. Diabatabu and itu ekana. A sene katrema boko. No one says on them. Ubi prabia kokotokwa enyana bro. Are these not corrupt proverbs? Therefore, we have to look at our own culture. So saying that police is corrupt is so easy. Because these are the people you see outside. Who else do you see outside? And let's also look at the quantum. One man's corruption can dupe the country for about $10 million.
Can kill thousands of people.
Yes. And police corruption, one city. So is it the quantum or the numbers? And is it because we are always on the... So I have a problem with the CDD, Afrobarometer, because the sample size, the context in which corruption is defined should also be made to us. So that we look at nepotism, patronage, and all those things, join them together, combine them with the money collection, and let's see who is corrupt.
That's COP Nathan Kofi Boakye, and he shared his thoughts 6 years ago on what he thinks corruption is and how corrupt we are generally as a people.
Everybody came in almost immediately. There was this petrol problem, burst or whatever you could call it. This is a serious thing.
The bus scandal.
Yes, serious scandal. Very serious. That if it had been in a civilized Western country, the leader would have resigned.
The leaders in the president.
Yes, he would have left office. Because look at the promises you give. And do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The promises he gave, anti-corruption, he will fight corruption, this and that, cited other people as incompetent and corrupt. And then you come in, and the thing is black and white right in front of you, and you brush it under the carpet. It's impossible.
And PDS scandal and all this.
Scandal and others.
You think that the president cares? Does he care about?
I don't think he cares. Because I go worry that I have known, if he cares, he would have handled this thing differently.
He doesn't care about the level of corruption in his government.
I don't think he is. And I believe also that the reason why he's quiet is simple, that he feels if a serious, independent commission is set up to look in all these points, there are about 8, it will topple his government. Whether he's implicated or not, it will affect him, badly.
That was Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. We'll go to the port shortly because we understand that medicine meant for treatment of malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis have been locked, maybe left to expire. Just discussing Akufo-Addo, the fight against corruption and the gap in between. Elena Piampofo. The president, he believes himself, Pao.
Honestly, he says he's doing a great job as far as corruption.
Is he the one supposed to be scoring himself, or are we the ones who are feeling what he's administering, who are supposed to be scoring him?
There's a saying that I only recently discovered after having moved back home. Right. It says, you guys often say, it doesn't lie in your mouth.
It doesn't lie in your mouth.
I really like that one. It doesn't lie in your mouth. Thank you.
It lies in our mouth.
Exactly.
So the president is putting what is not supposed to be inside his mouth in his mouth.
The people are heated this morning. The people are very heated. I shared a tweet on our platform this morning, and shout out to Lydia Force. And I don't know who has ruffled her feathers this morning.
What is she saying?
She's commenting giddy, giddy, giddy. She says that these politicians are living in a different world from us. Because how do we see a cow together? You and I, we're seeing a cow, and you try and tell me it's a chicken. It's up on our Facebook if you're watching us. Good morning. And that's that, and I think she has summarized it beautifully. What we are seeing, it looks like a cow, but you want to tell us that it's a chicken. How?
So you see the fox that was addressing the flock of sheep.
Indeed.
So we all know that foxes don't eat grass.
No.
They are not herbivores.
No.
They are carnivores.
They like the meat.
Right?
Exactly.
He says, oh, me, when I come, if you elect me, by all means, I will become a vegetarian. How do you trust such a person?
You do so at your own peril.